started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Yeah. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Yeah. Let's see. Should be good. Hell yes. 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 Where's where's live? Local. 6 minutes ago. Okay. 6 minutes ago. Starting soon. Yes. Start. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of the Meadows and Makers podcast here on MSP Waves. My name is Greg Dowd. I am your host. And tonight, I've got a brand new episode here for you. Something that I have started doing is I started this chicken tractor on steroids project. And recently I went ahead and built me a chickshaw from some videos that I'd been watching online, primarily Justin Rhodes and Billy Bond's Perma Pastures Farm videos. And so those two guys kind of inspired me to get this chickshaw going and that whole project going. So gotten a little bit further along. Just got the habitat built for him with the chickshaw, and now I am hatching some eggs that a friend gave me. So I've got some fertilized eggs that I put in an incubator over the weekend, and they've been going in the incubator for I guess a couple of days now, and so I hope it's one of those kind of set it and forget it things. I know I have to keep replacing the water like every 2 or 3 days, so if we follow along with me, I'll keep giving you guys updates on how the chickens are doing and keeping you guys abreast of the changes with the chickens. So um, it's exciting. I just hope I don't screw anything up with the incubation and somehow mess up my chickens. But I think I got a handle on it. If anybody is in the chat, just say hi and let me know that you're hanging out in there. But tonight I didn't have a guest, so I'm gonna show you guys some videos tonight based on the work that I just talked about, Billy Bond's Permapastures Farm and the chicken tractor on steroids. And then I have another video that I'd like to talk about. It was a video that was recently put out by Giant Tiny Lifestyle on YouTube. And he gets into a lot of similar stuff that I talk about. And I saw one of his videos that he put out recently, and he is actually doing the stuff. He's out there on the land, building structures out of aircrete and teaching workshops about how to do that. And be able to build for a not exorbitant prices per square foot. Probably about what normal construction would cost with aircrete, with all the finishing and all the stuff with aircrete, and it's a lot. For me, it seems more simple because you can have these repeatable forms that you can build and use those repeatable forms to create your structures. When you pour them full of this aircrete material, and then you put a another material on the outside that is kind of like a mesh and stucco thing that gives the outside rigidity, then you can create a really strong structure that way. And you can do these what it looks like he's doing is kind of a monolithic pour, um, but he's got to do it in sections, and that's really cool that he figured out how to do that. And it looks like he's doing it really well and teaching some workshops on it. And so I think he's got a really good video there talking about some of that stuff. So I'd like to share that with you guys tonight. So that's what we're going to talk about. I guess let me show you guys a little bit on what we're talking about with the with the chickens. I'll show you. Here's a couple of here's a photo of the um, eggs, fertilized eggs, in the incubator, and there's a basically that little arm in there helps this little motor turn, and it's attached to this tray that holds all these eggs right there, and that'll help turn the eggs routinely throughout the day, kind of simulating what a hen would do by keeping the egg rotated in the under her breasts or whatever. And so that's what it does, and it does that throughout the day, keeps the eggs rotating, and then it's just got a simple heater in there and a water tray, and this is like one of the cheapest ones that I could buy off of Amazon. I think it's called the Hova Baiter. I'll have to look that up for you guys and give you a link for that, but I think it's called the Hova Baiter, and I'll look that link up. But it's a really cheap one, and then there's that little automatic turner for the eggs was the thing that was keeping me from trying this. But I once I had that, I wanted to give it a shot, because kind of like remembering to rotate eggs every day, and you're supposed to minimize the exposure of the oils on your hands on the eggs and everything. So anyway, if you can find an incubator that's got like an automatic turning system, some kind, there's one I'd like to probably get that I can I'm gonna look up, but and then maybe just sell this one because it handles all this stuff more automatically for you. Like you have like a water reservoir that has some kind of intelligence where make sure that you have enough water in the reservoir that's needed to do the incubation and all that, and I think it may regulate temperature a lot easier for you. This one's kind of like you basically have like a really manual dial thing that controls the heat or the energy going into the heating elements, and then that's basically the thermostat, and you just calibrate it to a thermometer. So they send you, I guess, a calibrated thermometer, and demonstrate that you can put it on the top of the eggs to get the right temperature in the incubator, and just with that information, then you're able to just keep that going for a number of days. It was like 21 days from what I researched. I guess up to 29 days. So something like that. And so, so yeah, started them over the weekend, and we should get some chicks out of this. I hope I don't do anything wrong. I know somebody replied that you'll get them after 30 days. 30 days, and you shall, from Becca in Mexico. And so I needed to reply, if I did everything right. I should get chickens. So here's to us getting everything right there, and get some chickens out of it. So let's see. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode last week of the podcast with my guest Chris Walls, the Monkey's Wrench. He just got their website up, and so I wanted to talk about that for a little bit today at the start of the podcast here. So yeah, if you guys go to themonkeyswrench.com, you can check out Chris Walls, and if you would like to become a member of the Makerspace, and this membership may even come with some like access to maybe instructionals from workshops put on at the Monkey's Wrench. That was something I was talking to Chris about, and maybe if we can make that happen, then we'll be able to integrate that into his website somehow or something. But anyway, that his website is live now. I just wanted to give him a shout out here at the beginning of the episode. Appreciated him coming on last week, and was a really great guest. So everybody go check that out. And then tonight I wanted to share with you guys some of these videos from Perma Pastures Farm about this chicken tractor on steroids 3.0, and see how they're implementing this chicken tractor system, because I'm going to try to mimic this myself. I wanted to make sure that I really got down the system and all the procedures. Just watch some more videos on how everything's supposed to go, so that I can kind of brush myself up on it, preparing for the new chickens. So we're going to watch some of these videos tonight is what I got for you. And I'm going to hang out in the chat with you guys, and we can talk about it if you have questions or whatever. But yeah, here's, let's see. Here we go. Oh no. Oh, you're kidding me. Hold on, guys. I just realized that I didn't have the appropriate audio set up going, and I needed to open my sound settings here, and change my output device to microphone here. And need to enable that. Make sure that's all enabled. And then let's give this a whirl again.
Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. Exciting day today because this marks the new iteration of the chicken tractor on steroids. Now, let me just get this out of the way right off, folks. This isn't our intellectual property. It was devised by the genius named Jeff Lawton down in Australia. And I think it was inspired from a guy named Carl Hammer, actually here in America. Anyway, this is our version of it because we've had to change a number of things to suit our terrain and the conditions we have here. So with that said, what did we do before? The previous versions of the chicken tractor on steroids, not only did we produce all of our chicken for free, in fact, we made money on the deal when you add how much compost they made. Now, the big difference from the first time to the second time was the amount that we produced, and it was an enormous amount. I think it was 21 cubic yards of compost that these birds produced while getting fat at the same time to put in the freezer. Okay, so what have we got so far? These birds were actually incubated and hatched by us. Now, they're not specifically a broiler. They are a dual-purpose bird. Now, what they are, I can't tell you, because Persimmon Phil, our rooster, basically got his groove on with every chicken out there, and produced what we brought down last night in this chicken tractor. And by the way, this chicken tractor we don't use for anything other than producing our meat, okay? So, Persimmon Phil made a bunch of little children, and we got about 30 some in there, and we also have mixed in some replacements to our layer flock. We'll get into that on down the road as we cover it. Now, folks, just right off the bat, we're not looking, it's not some cheesy vlog or anything like that, because there is so much involved in this system. This isn't just your regular chicken growing system. There's so many nuanced things and so many changes and deviations that we make along the way that we give you updates weekly on Sunday, hopefully. Okay, so first day out here, we got them in here, they're in there chilling. They're gonna be a little squeamish, they ain't gonna wanna come out. We'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing we need to do is set up their cage, their compost cage, which is what this is. Folks, if you saw our compost video, it's the same material. The only difference is we've taken 1-inch hardware cloth and have attached it to this woven wire fence. So what we did, remember, when we make compost, we need at least a cubic yard to make it work. So we do the math on this thing. It's basically 6 feet across, 6 feet in diameter, and about 1.5 feet tall.
So that's the first thing I made, other than the chickshaw, is this 6 foot diameter hardware cloth little ring, so you can start this composting system with chickens. And it's really cool way to create soil pretty rapidly, and how to basically compost all this organic material very quickly. So yeah, let's check this out.
We don't need quite that much to achieve a cubic yard. And the reason why it's set up that way is I want it low. It was made specifically for meat birds, but these guys could easily fly up there. It was made low to get all the material we need, and at the same time allow these birds easy access to get in and out. We'll provide ramps at first, but they're not going to need them here before long. Now, first thing we're going to do, we're going to assemble this cage. Remember, it comes like this. We left little hooks on the end. We're going to attach this cage, and then we're going to take all the bedding that we got from when they were in the brooder, all that bedding that was up there. Remember, we don't waste anything. All that bedding that was in the brooder is going to go here. But before we do that, we're going to thoroughly wet the bottom of it. We're going to put in the bedding, and then we're going to wet it again. Then we'll come back to it. All right, now we have their soiled bedding in here. It's wet down. You want to saturate this stuff the first time you do it. Now, I do want to say that in Jeff Lawton's system, you would take their bedding, put it down first, and then about a wheelbarrow full of whatever clean manure you can find, preferably. And then you would stick that down. And then daily, you would take their food and stick it on top, and then the chickens come out and work it over. We're going to get to all that in a little while. It's too much to unfold for 1 week. And folks, also a word of caution. If this is your first time out running chickens, don't do this. If it's your second time, you don't want to do it either. You want to have at least a decent understanding of chickens, and it would help to have a functional knowledge of compost as well. But if you want to go out and give it a shot, please do let me know. Because folks, this is by far the most complex meat growing chicken system I know of. But for me, it's also the most rewarding. And we're going to cover more and more of this as we go along. Like I said, go back and watch the previous videos of how we did it. So now, that part's done. We got these little planks here, spaced a little bit too wide, but I got news for you. These chickens at this age can already fly up here easily. So all we're going to do is station 3 of them. We'll kind of put one right here on their path coming out of there. Whether or not they use it is up to them, but we'll just station them pretty much around here. So we'll post these up and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, because these animals are not used to being outside in sunlight yet, they're not going to want to go out. So the most important thing at first when we begin this is to make sure that we put, is basically their store-bought food. This is going to go away in a while and we'll explain that later. Put their store-bought food, a little bit of chick grit, and their water in very, very close proximity to the door. Because the first thing they're going to want to do when they come out, you may have a couple of brave souls at first, but they're going to want to stay in there all day. As soon as we drop that door, we're going to shoo them out, and you want this stuff in close proximity. Now let's get on to the fence. All right, time for the net. Now, anybody that's ever taken chicks and put them outside, you already know that I don't care how hot you make this, they're going to make their way out. So we're going to do it differently, and this is the way we've been doing it for quite a while. Instead of just running this net once out and making it small, or in the past I've taken things like snow fence. Now they won't get out of that, and I kind of stuck it at the bottom. It's a pain. So what we're going to do is just double up the net, maybe even triple it up. We're going to keep it as, because they're not wanting to go too far right now anyway. We're just going to double it up, and we're going to run this fence out in a very close circle around here.
So yeah, this is how you would start chicks. This is something that I've been wondering about, is this beginning part of the process here, and that is something that I didn't even I didn't remember. Is that yeah, they can totally get out of even those small gaps in the fence, electric netting, and so when they're smaller, you need to probably triple up their fence. So that's what they're doing here.
All right, now we're going to make this fence hot, and all we're going to do is apply. We got our tethering system. Go back and watch that video if you'd like to learn more about it. We're just going to take this number 14. I'm going to roll it down there to where that bee fence is, and I'm just going to strip off, add it to there. So now it's tethered. This whole thing is tethered there. Now, folks, if you look at this fence, it's almost triple deep on this. So the holes don't line up perfectly. When the chicken goes up there and gets zapped on that thing, it ain't gonna take long for them to realize I need to stay in my lane. All right, everything is ready to rock and roll. Got to make a few adjustments on the fence, but outside of that, I'm gonna let these guys out and they ain't gonna come running out. Behold. So what we're gonna have to do, we can sit here and wait, and then eventually there'll be some brave soul to finally want to come out, okay? Another reason we got this small footprint is that also it makes it a harder target to any aerial predators. So we're going to leave it like this, and they're going to stay in this area. A lot of it's going to depend on how much they soil this area and how much activity I see in them. That's why I say if you're a novice, maybe don't start with this. So what's going to happen eventually, because you're not going to see this part, over the next 3 days, they're going to come out, and the majority of them won't know how to get back in. So I have to find them underneath, put them back in at night. Another thing that's going to happen. Right now, they're going to come out. They got feed on demand. In 3 days, that's probably going to change. As soon as I open this gate, this door, once I see them running out, I'm going to take that and I'm going to stick it over inside here. Then they're going to have a Pavlovian response to where they need to go to get fed. And then gradually, and this is all happening from now until the next time you see a video, we're going to switch out from that, and they're going to be on food scraps. That's a whole nother ball of wax, folks, so bear with me. This is how we set it up, though. So with that said, we're going to get these guys out, and we're going to get them, they're going to probably spend the majority of today underneath here, but they're going to figure out, they're going to explore their environment. So folks, this is part one. This is how you set this up. The biggest difference now is we don't even have initial input cost for the cost of the birds. The only thing we've paid for thus far has been the store-bought organic feed, and it's only been 2 bags. That ain't that much. So, hopefully this helps. Stay tuned for the next one. Till next time, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for permaculture is my passion. We'll see you next time.
All right, so 2 bags of organic feed, and that's all he used to get these chickens started. So let's see how it progresses here.
Our way. Now, folks, there's not a whole lot in terms of movement that's going to happen in the system today. The big thing I want to try to communicate is part of the overview, and frankly, a great deal more than that. Okay, let's just start back to the beginnings of it. Where did the idea come from and what's it meant to do? It was originally conceived by a genius by the name of Carl Hammer. He basically runs Vermont Compost. Jeff Lawton, another genius, went there and visited one time, got an idea of taking his chicken system and adapting it for a homestead. And so we've taken that idea years back from the very beginning when it first came out. And because we didn't necessarily have all the components that he had, we had to redo the system in a way that works for us. And we think after years of trial and getting it right, getting it wrong, that we've come up with a way, in fact, we're really convinced of it, we've come up with a way to make this system really adaptable for the homesteader. The only difference is, it's going to take more work out of you. So now let's talk about why I think this system is groundbreaking and important. For those of you that just got into this, go back and watch the first video. Folks, we don't have a lack of content, so if anybody thinks we're dragging this out, you're wrong, and we're going to prove it just like we did on the compost video up there. The problem we've done in the past, and the problem I've seen with so many exposures of this system in compost making, is that we all try to put it in one video when there's way too many nuanced things to communicate to make that happen. Okay, first of all, let's go through the components real quick for those that are just going in. And like I said, for those of you new to it, go back, watch the first video. It's kind of important. Okay, we got these chicks that we raised from our rooster down there, Persimmon Phil. Got them in the brooder, got them outside. They've been outside for about a week now. And as you can hear in the background, they're ready to get out. Folks, we gave you a video on how to get them back in, but now they're ready to get out and go to work in this compost pile. Now, what do we have in here? We basically have a cage that is 6 feet across and 1.5 feet high. When it's all filled up, it gives us about 1.5 cubic yards. Actually, a little bit more than that. So what happens during this first week, or what I call induction, the definition of what I'm saying induction in this system is basically the time they get out of that brooder, get into this system, and are eating 100% food scraps. Now, had these been meat birds, they'd already be out right now, but these guys grow slower and their digestive system needs a little time to catch up. So last week, we basically put a carbon layer down. Now for us, that means getting it out of the barn. There's a little bit of manure and stuff in there too. And what happens every day, every single day, we start out with a low layer, we feed them out here in this cage. So it means the chickens are gonna poop right in this area by and large. So when that happens, at the end of the day or the very next morning, we come out with what you see here. They've basically had a chance to eat all this stuff. Whatever's left over is fine. It's going to act as a nitrogen layer. And every single day for the week, we come out and we dump a new carbon layer on it. And if you're on a hill like this, you want to try to cheat it to the uphill side, because the chickens, being what they are, they're almost always going to scratch downhill. So if you're not careful, if you just stick it in the middle, it's going to wind up going over the cage. But because they scratch, in the beginning, that's exactly why we attached 1-inch hardware cloth to this. In the past, we didn't do that, and you got stuff all over the place. So we basically do this every single day. Let me get this other one in here, and then we'll talk about the next step. All right, now the next part. We got a carbon layer down. And folks, remember, this will repeat every single day. So what do I have here? We got some old carrots and stuff that didn't really make the cut. There's some of that we could have eaten. Also in here, we have a bunch of old spinach. You know, the stuff that was grown out too much. And, you know, we could eat it if we wanted. It's just a little bitter. But the chickens love this stuff, right? So this is part of the induction method. We're trying to get them accustomed to eating primarily this, along with the biota in this compost. But folks,
so every day you got to keep adding more carbon material, and then on top of that you can put their feed down, and as long as you just continually cover up their waste from the previous day and adding, keep adding to that more carbon material, then you're gonna create, this really good volume of compost, because their manure and everything's helping to break all that stuff down. So it's pretty wild.
I don't want to get too far ahead because we've lost so many people in the past trying to explain this system. And just stick with me through the end, folks, because I'm going to tell you why this, by far, is the most consequential chicken growing system on the planet, in my opinion. Okay, folks, this here is comfrey. We got so much of it. You might be able to see some in the back of it. We got it everywhere, and that's by design. I could go into the benefits of comfrey, but we'll cover that in another video. So this comfrey, we're going to stick in there too. Now, in this system and in the future, you're going to think I'm crazy, but honestly, I could have them, I'll clearly need more. I could have them survive largely on what you just saw in there. But because they're still in that induction phase, we got to add another component. This is basically fermented feed with rice mixed in it. Now, my son, being the genius that he is, we couldn't figure out at first why we couldn't get them over quickly to eating food scraps. Well, he said, you know what, let's put rice in there. It resembles maggots. Let's see if it works. And folks, not only did it worked amazingly. So that's going to go out here too. So there's rice and there's some fermented feed in here. Now they're not going to completely leave this feed until we flip this compost. Folks, stick around. I'm telling you, this is all going to make sense here in a little while. There's a reason for this. So once at this time next week, this compost cage you see is going to go away and it's going to be repositioned further down the hill. Then we're going to flip this compost. Okay, now that that's done, let's kind of give you an overview. Remember, I told you we had an 18-day compost. This is essentially a 30-day compost. Let me explain how that works. All right, let's talk about the compost in this system. Okay, 18-day, go watch those videos and you'll realize that whole process from start to finish is 18 days. Now, this process here in this chicken tractor on steroids system is about a 30-day process. Now let me explain the difference. Like I said before, information was hard to come by, and we had to experiment with this system over and over and over to get a system that works great without the use of cow manure, which is what Jeff Lawton had initially in his system. Well, that's why we do the layering process. We have a carbon layer, then there's nitrogen. With them, whatever they don't eat is covered up by the next day's carbon layer. Nitrogen, carbon, so on and so forth. You get the point. The difference is, in this system, compared to the other one, think about it. In an 18-day compost, you're going to put your hands on that compost pile, flipping, whatever, 8, maybe 9 times. And let's say it needs to be refined. You could be as many as 10 or 12 times if just learning how to do it. Here's the beauty about this system. And you're going to see it unfold right before your eyes. Instead of putting our hands on this thing 9 times in 18 days, or 8, 7, whatever the case may be, we're only going to put our hands on this 4 times in a month. And the chickens are going to do all the rest of it for us. Sound crazy? It's not, and it works. Last time we did this, we did it with meat birds, and they produced, I think, 21 cubic yards of compost. Folks, that is impressive. It really is, and they do all the work. So that's one of the many benefits to this system, is that it takes you out of the compost making system, produces what Jeff Lawton thinks is even higher quality compost, and the chickens do 90% of the work. They do compost shredding on a whole new level. So that's one cool component. Now we're going to get these birds out and we're going to talk about what they do in this system and why, instead of using exclusively meat birds, we're using dual purpose birds. All right, this gang is happy, as you can tell. Now, imagine for a moment, you're going to see them eat primarily their fermented chick food, or it's not really fermented, let's call it hydrated store-bought chick food, along with the rice. Okay, that's important because you're wondering, like, well, why did you put the greens out here? It's just like if you were to take a kid to a buffet and you let them loose, they're going to eat the things they want to eat first. And then if they get hungry enough, they're going to come back and eat this stuff. It tastes great, but less filling, so to speak. You get the point. But I promise you, by close of business today, every bit of this green will be gone. In fact, I'm probably going to have to add more to it because despite how small they are, these guys pack a punch. And plus, they're making that transition. Before in the past, one of the mistakes we made was we did it cold turkey. They were eating store-bought food one day, and then next thing you know, they were eating food scraps. So just like going from a regular diet to a keto diet, they had the same effect. So if we, through this induction phase, which will end the moment we flip this cage, they're making that transition. They're doing it gradually. And by doing this, we found out that it is a much, much better way of doing it. Now let's talk about these birds. In the past, I've been asked, can you use Cornish crosses in this system? And in this system, I'm going to tell you in the most resounding way, no. You need birds that can move material, and that's going to unfold in the reasons why here over the coming weeks. I need birds that are at least dual purpose. They can't be those, garden variety, they look good kind of birds. They need to be birds that will, A, forage. That is critical in this system. And they also need to be birds that are honestly very well suited for this environment. They got to be able to make the transition of not only eating the carbs, there's a lot of protein in comfrey, but I'm just giving you an example, to not only eat the carbohydrates, which is largely what we're going to provide, but be able to go through these compost piles and extract the protein they need. Folks, I know that there seems a lot going on here, but go back and watch this video as often as you need. Probably nobody on the planet has tested this system and has put it more to work than us. Okay, so these birds are the ones we hatched from our rooster, and they're all, I don't even know what breed most of them are, because I really don't know. I mean, I could figure it out to some extent, but by and large, every bird you see here is a dual-purpose bird that we didn't buy, that we procured right here on the property. So, just so you kind of get a sense of things, from start to finish, the only input cost that we have in this whole system was the cost of that feed that you see right there. 2 bags is basically what we need, and by the time it's all said and done, by the time they're on food scraps, I would have only need 1.5 bags of organic feed. Pretty impressive. Now, let's talk about the next components. All right, folks, I'm going to go through, and this is probably the most important component of this entire video. Take a look around you, and by and large, most people aren't talking about it, certainly not in the mainstream. But you look at commodity prices, and they are going through the roof. Price of fuel, going through the roof. There's even much talk about a chicken shortage out there. And then beef prices, because of the corn prices and everything else going through the roof, those are going to go through the roof as well. We were recently asked by one of our awesome viewers, can permaculture feed the world? I may be paraphrasing that, but you get the point. And the answer is yes. But it needs to start on the most local levels. And folks, of all the systems out there, this isn't some specialized crazy system that we do just because it looks cool. It's because it works. And folks, we can ultimately get to this system, and we are already there where we can take the food scraps on this farm along with the biota in this compost and raise all of the meat we need endlessly right here on this farm. At the same time, producing more high quality compost that you can't possibly buy anywhere. So within this system, folks, think about it. With the composting element and with the protein element that you can take out of it, you could do this indefinitely. Now, can you do it by yourself? yeah, we're going to show you that you can do it in this closed space on your own farm, but you got to have systems set up. Check out a book called The Independent Farmstead, Sean and Beth Doherty, to figure out how you can take components of theirs to add to your farm to do that very thing concerning your omnivores. You can do this in terms of community by partnering with some of your local businesses. Now, a lot of them are going to tell you, hey, it ain't legal. But folks, the way I'm looking at it, there are things in this world called unjust laws. And if it doesn't make sense to me, I'll tell you straight, I'm not playing along with it. You're going to tell me that it's okay to drop a lot of this stuff in a dumpster, but we can't use it, even though it's perfectly fine for human consumption, to feed to our animals? I guess you just send my mail to the county jail because I'm not playing that game. So anyway, this system can, in fact, feed so many communities, and I'm going to prove it as we unfold this system. I could indefinitely hatch eggs and transfer those birds to this system, simultaneously taking out the protein I need. I could keep this thing going indefinitely. Now, could I do it by myself? Absolutely, because when I was working out the bugs in this system, I had 3 chicken tractors on steroids going simultaneously, doing all the work by myself at that particular time, just figuring out how to make this thing work. This system alone could, in fact, change the world, and I'm not overstating it. Don't believe me? Go back, watch the 2 times we've already done it. This time we're doing it even better, and then the iterations after this, we're going to do it even better in a closed-loop system. Folks, this is what I'm hoping more than anything to communicate throughout this video, that we are on shaky, shaky ground. I dare say a knife's edge in terms of what's going on in this country. We need independent food systems, delocalized, decentralized food systems that people can produce not only on your own farm, but if you need the help as a community. That's not only what we're doing here. We're teaching you how to do this. And also, if you need help with this, employ other people. Maybe you have the land. Bring people out there that can do the physical labor if you can't. Perhaps you have the land. I don't need to go through all the different ways this could be adapted. But folks, we're going to show you in short order how this system alone could feed entire communities, and I dare say feed the planet, and I'm not overstating it. So folks, I know that I've unpacked a lot of information in this one video, and the reason why is because they're going to be in this system for another week, and then we're going to flip the compost, and then it's full steam ahead into the official chicken tractor on steroids. And folks, we hope you stick along because we're going to produce some outstanding compost.
All right, so that's part 2 of that series. So let's check out part 3 here. So yeah, I mean, the basic idea here, and we may jump ahead to get toward maybe closer to the end here. But this is a really cool series on how this whole process goes, and yeah, we'll keep going through the process up until I think they basically start repeating the process. So we'll go to there. So this is part 3.
All right, y'all, here it is. It's time to get real in what I call the most revolutionary chicken and compost producing method on the planet. Now, right off the bat, it does take considerably more work, but if you want this quality stuff, you'll find out that no matter what it is, whether it's your pigs, your chickens, whatever, the more holistic it becomes, 9 times out of 10, it requires more out of you. And it's really not that much in the aggregate. All right, so this cage has been set up here for 2 weeks. Now, had it been meat birds, it'd be a little bit different. I'd have to make adjustments. But now what's going to happen? Remember, we had our fence tripled up on itself when they were small to keep them from escaping. Now we're going to take this cage, we're going to take it off of here, move the chicken tractor that way, reassemble the cage, and then this pile, we'll call it week 1 pile, is now going to be turned. It's going to be flipped. We'll explain more. But with that said, it's time to unravel this thing, because it gets a little tangled up when you do it this way. We'll unravel this net and give them just enough more. We won't go all the way out with it. We'll give them just enough because they're still small to do what they need, give them grass, have room to turn this compost pile and set up the new cage. All right, so here we go. The fence is largely where I want the footprint to be. Now, as you can see, there's a great deal of growth down there. And so Michelle's gonna come by with a weed eater and just knock it down just enough because chickens don't like really high grass. So she's gonna knock it out just enough to keep our fence from grounding out too much and also to provide some means of access for the birds. Now, also what's gonna happen, we're gonna take this cage off, we're gonna reassemble it down there, and we're gonna flip this compost going downhill. That's critical. So we'll get that done next. So the weed eating's done. And folks, it would have been better for all parties involved had we let our ruminants go through before like we did the last time. It just doesn't make sense right now because they're all the way over there.
So it looks like they expanded the netting so that they get a wider area for the chickens now. And from like withdrawing some of the feed, I think after you get your first compost pile made, you can use the chickens to start turning that compost pile for you. So let's check this out by them trying to go after like microorganisms in the soil, I guess.
We would want them to go through and we would leave them a little bit longer because we're going to want that grass low when these chickens are that small. Now the next step, got the cage kind of sitting over there right now. This is their week 1 pile. We're going to flip it, okay? And the chickens are all of a sudden going to become more interested, but we'll talk about that at the end. But the idea is we're going to flip this to right here. Now we also had to take the chicken tractor a little further than we ordinarily would. It would typically go about 1.5 times the length of that chicken tractor, okay? We had to go a little bit more because in this terrain we got bumps and humps. There was something of a very small cliff it had to go over, so it went a little further than it ordinarily would. With that said, it's time to flip. All right, y'all, this pile is being reassembled downhill, as you can tell. And all their food scraps that they didn't eat, it's okay. When you're building that cage, it's all gonna stack up. Remember, you got carbon at the bottom, then manure, carbon, manure. But in this system, we're gonna basically start with a manure/carbon layer all at the same time when we take that stuff out of the cage. Now, this is critical, and we're gonna cover it more later. Remember before in that last video we did on the 18-day compost, I was looking at it, and if you let your peripheral vision go at it, you see all this life? Guess what that life is, y'all? It's protein for these chickens. We're gonna largely supply all of their carbohydrate needs down there in their daily cage. The protein they are going to extract out of here, and they're gonna figure it out in short order because it's already what chickens love to do. Now keep in mind with this pile, we saturate it even more than we would at 18-day, and it's gonna require more water. Now in our case, we got water catchment on the barn, runs down a hose, and that's exactly what we're using to spray this down. But depending on your weather conditions and depending on your understanding of compost, remember, this is why I said the 18-day, it was good to kind of know, have at least some basis of how to make compost, because this stuff is gonna be different. It's not covered up by a tarp. Now, there are some days when there are continuous rainy days that we will cover it up, that we don't want it to get too saturated. But remember, you're gonna need a water source nearby. You're gonna have to spray it down and keep this rather wet because the chickens are going to get up in here. Once they figure out what it is, they're going to scratch it all out during the day. Then in the evening, when we go to pick them up, we're just going to kind of bring the sides in. Let that go, okay? That's going to happen for a week. Now that this is done and it's saturated, let's talk about the composition of the new cage. All right, so compost is done. It's flipped. Now we're going to reassemble the cage. Now typically, okay, a Jeff Lawton system, ordinarily you would take their bedding that's on the inside of that tractor, put it down, cover it up with manure, and then you put the food scraps on top. But because of the system we had to invent a new way of doing it. So just like I showed you in the first one where it's a layer after layer after layer after layer after layer, it's like a lasagna. All we're gonna do is take more of our carbon layer. We're gonna first wet this down. That's why she's got the hose. We're gonna wet this down and saturate it pretty good. Then we're gonna take the carbon layer, and folks, for us, that means bedding out of the barn. For you, it could be leaves, it could be any number of things. It could be sawdust, whatever a good carbon source is for you. And you're gonna layer it. So right now, we're not gonna have much in here except for, okay, we're gonna put that carbon, we're gonna water it, put the carbon layer down, then we're gonna get their bedding out, stick it in, and then we'll feed them. Then we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Why do you have a snicker on your face?
Because I was going to spray you while you were in here.
This is like an assault? You're spraying the wrong spot.
Spray him.
You keep coming closer.
No.
She likes it. You just like it, huh, Bubby?
We're going to get a base layer in here, but because we're on a hill, we want to always try to cheat it to the uphill side if we can. Like I said, every day we're just going to add more bedding, not bedding, but we're going to add more carbon every day. So they'll get in here, they'll eat, they'll poop, they'll do all the things they do, and it's going to add some really nice nitrogen. So let me get the other bag and Michelle can keep spraying. Hey, why are you messing around? All right, to get the bedding out, we got to get them out. So they're going to be wondering where the grub is. Because of their Pavlovian response to this cage and everything, they've been fed here for a while. They're trained. So they're going to want to come in here, but they're wondering where their food is, which is cool. We're going to take that bedding out of the tractor, get it, dump it in, and then we'll put their food on top, and then they're going to go to town. All right, this is important, what you see right now. We haven't yet fed them, and they're already knowing exactly because they can see those the biota, the microorganisms in that pile. So you can look at them right now. This is exactly what you want. They are in there extracting their protein, and that's where they're going to get it. They're going to scratch this out all day, even though if you look down here, we don't have the food in here yet, but they know where to go to get. We're going to provide the carbohydrates largely in here. They are going to extract their protein in the form of biota out of this pile, and you can see them already doing it. We found out that doing this system, when you use store-bought food, all of it's formulated, has exactly the right ratios of everything. Well, these guys already know better than you and I ever could exactly what they need and how much of it they need. So they will get all the protein they need out of here, all the carbs out of here, and they judge and decide how to do that. Now, somebody's going to ask, do they have any problems? And all the times we've run this, especially with these dual-purpose birds, we've had zero problems in terms of growth, in terms of deformities, lack of this, lack of that. In fact, if you have layers in a system like this, they actually outperform the chickens that are given feed on demand. Magnificent system. It's funny how just like that, they already went right to it. All right, we got this tarp back down in here. And all I'm going to do is take this straw, this leftover straw we had up at the barn. Now, it can be anything. You can use leaves, any carbon source you want. Just stick it down in there. Just try to make sure it's halfway clean. And all I'm going to do is just kind of, let me throw some over to Michelle. And they are going to lay on this and poop on it over the next week. All right, just a little caution there. It's really not much of a caution, but when you put new bedding in here, the chickens, when they come in at night, they're going to be kind of It's important that you do this in the morning because it gives them time to acclimate. But the first time you do this, you're going to find out that there's going to be a little bit of hesitancy about coming back in. But they will. You may have to coach them along. And we already showed you how to do that part. So now that this is done, their bedding's in the cage, it's time to go feed them. All right, these guys are down there grubbing, but they see this red bucket. So a couple of them, I got their attention. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to feed them. This is where they eat every day. We got planks set up. That's really not necessary for these birds because they can fly over, they can do exactly what they want. But for meat birds, it might be a little more necessary. Now, what do I have here? In here is a bunch of scrap romaine lettuce heads that I basically acquired from a restaurant in town, okay? And for a whole bunch of reasons, they're gonna remain nameless. Obviously, there's some rubbish in there, so we wanna get that out and put it in here. Now, things like this, paper towels, that's completely okay. I'm gonna leave it. Now, what we have in this bucket is basically rice, few beans, and some corn chips and stuff. And we're just gonna put that in there. You don't wanna put it in one hump if you can help it, for obvious reasons, so they're not mobbing each other. Okay, that's it. Now, it is critical that you leave them until you have your first flip of that first compost pile. It is absolutely critical that you leave them to some extent on their store-bought feed, because it's not until they get that pile and they get this pile that they are able to fully make the transition over to this chicken tractor on steroid system. Because through there, they're gonna get all the protein they need. Out here, they're gonna get protein and carbs. But it's also a balancing act. You don't wanna feed them so much here that they don't mess with your piles. So yeah, there's a certain degree of playing with this system that you're gonna have to figure out. But that's part of it too. You know, if you want really awesome compost, you want chickens that you raise for free, this is what you got to do. So here we are. We got a couple of them that scattered on it, but by and large, most of them are totally digging that pile. Now, as they're going through there, they're taking out the biota, and at the same time, they're leaving their manure to keep that going. It is a magnificent system, folks. And as it unfolds, you'll understand that it wasn't hyperbole when I said last week, this could feed the world, because it can. This is why I want to evangelize this system as far and as wide and as often as I can to as many people as I can, because at these times where food security is shaky at best, we can feed entire communities. This thing can be scaled up or down depending on your needs. Can't really scale down much lower in this system than 28 birds, but it can be scaled to fit your needs. We don't even have to get this stuff from the store. We have enough right here on this farm, and we're going to show you over the coming weeks how we don't even need to go to town and acquire this stuff. We can source every bit of it right here. So folks, I hope you understand that I'm not overstating when I say the gravity of this system and what it could do, especially in these times. So evangelize this information. Let everybody you know what we're doing here, because they can replicate it, and we'd be happy to help along the way. And many of you out there have demonstrated interest in wanting to replicate it. Let us know. Give us your questions. We'll coach you in any way that we can, obviously long distance. So take this, spread it around. Remember, hit that notification bell, subscribe. Tell your friends about what we're doing. Till next time, this is Billy, the Permaculture Pimp Daddy, where PIMP stands for permaculture is my passion, because it is.
All right, so yeah, you guys kind of get the picture a little bit there. You know, they're trying to build soil, and they are doing that by like getting scrap food and everything to feed to their chickens. From local restaurants and stuff. They showed where he poured in some rice and beans. One note I did make from that is that you're still going to need store-bought food until you have enough of these active compost piles for the chickens to live on. Is what I gathered from that last video. And you know, this is one of those things that I think is a technology that can be replicated. It's not too difficult. There is like kind of a unique innovation that is modern here is that it is electric livestock netting. The mobile net, conductive electric netting that they sell now is the key to this system because in order to let your chickens free range kind of like this and do a lot of foraging, that would be pretty impractical sometimes if you weren't doing it like these guys are doing it, like where you can move them around and you can move these composts around and you can kind of keep them mobile and everything like that. That they're gonna be foraging pretty hardcore, and you can get them to eventually live off their forage from what he's talked about with the system. So let's check out the next part of this video here and what Billy's talking about for the next steps here.
People wanting to replicate this, we're going to break it down in steps to where anybody following at home, just like the 18-day compost pile we did, can just go back and watch all these videos and see how it was done. Okay, this was in the compost cage before. We broke down the cage, reassembled it down the hill. Now we got this pile. Now, unlike the 18-day compost, which is running at this time basically about 150 degrees, this one, I got my little compost thermometer in here. This one is running at about 110. And if you were to catch it a few days ago, it was considerably higher. I'm just giving you a kind of a basis of understanding. It's breaking down and it's active. Now let's go down there and check this compost cage real quick. Okay, I'm gonna let this thing stabilize, but in the meantime, what's gonna happen, we're gonna first, before we do anything else, we're gonna flip that compost pile back there. Now, when we do that, you'll notice that when the birds are scratching it out during the week, as it gets near the end of the week, they scratch it out less and less and less. Part of it is because of the heat in the core of that thing, but also is they've extracted the biota. The beauty about this system is as the chickens grow, as the chicks grow in the chickens, they're requiring more protein. So I was just remarking to Michelle yesterday that it's a good thing we're into the phase where we flip this pile, because that one is getting to the point where it needs to be flipped and then more microbial life will be introduced. So now they'll not only have that pile that we're about to flip, but also this one. Now this thing is stabilized. Let's see what kind of temperature we got here. All right, here we go. It's nearly 100 degrees here. Now, why am I pointing this out? Is because also in this system I've been asked, hey, can you do this in the wintertime? Well, I'll tell you one thing we do, and I've demonstrated it before, is that's why I'm partial to these vacuum water cans. Just a little side note, you can take this, stick it on top of your compost pile, and your water won't freeze. And I've done this when it was in the teens for days and days and days, and it works perfectly. Okay, that aside, first thing we're gonna do, we got two things really to do as a matter of maintenance. Flip that pile, and then the net isn't a complete net right now. We're gonna roll it out once we flip the pile. We're gonna roll it out down the hill, then it's off to the races. But in the meantime, Michelle's gonna run the weed eater and kind of knock out a little bit of spot for where this chicken tractor is gonna sit. Here's the difference between an 18-day compost pile and this one, and there are several, is that unlike an 18-day compost pile where it's covered, this one is exposed to the air, which means it's losing moisture, especially on repeatedly sunny days like we're currently having. So the difference is, as we turn this one, Michelle's gonna run, me and William will go ahead and turn this pile. Michelle's gonna run the water, gotta keep adding moisture into it. You need to make it pretty saturated. All right, first pile is flipped. And there's a reason we start with that, because we want to take this fence and we're going to cheat it in until it's maybe 6 or 7 feet away from the edge. If you let your fence get any closer than that, when they scratch those piles out, it's going to wind up in the fence. That's from experience. That's from doing this system quite a bit, so we know exactly what it is. So what we're going to do, we got our biochar in here in case somebody's wondering, and on top is a decoy owl. Everything is basically going to move that way a little bit. We're going to take their chicken tractor, move it down about 1.5 times the length of that tractor, maybe a little bit less this time because we had to go a little bit more last time. Also, this fence isn't the full length of the fence out. We got a lot of it going back behind you that you can't see right now. So we're going to straighten out. Remember, we kept the footprint small. As they gotten bigger and as the system gets bigger, the fence gets bigger. Now they've graduated to the entire fence. So that's what we're going to do. Bring this in, stretch out the fence. Michelle's going to weed eat down there. We'll be off and running. All right, so what's going to happen, Michelle's going to go ahead and weed eat the new footprint that this tractor is going to take, really for 2 reasons. Because at the end of the day, when these chicks are small, they will hide in that tall grass and they won't go to the exit. So you want to get that part down pretty low. That's a big reason. And then we'll go ahead, remember, little chicks especially don't like really high grass, so we'll just bring that down around the edges and they'll work their way to it. So essentially, this net won't have to move unless we wanted to for the next couple of weeks. So just to reiterate, this is going to go down here. We're going to reassemble their cage down along with it, and we're going to flip the next pile that's in the cage. All right, so that area is weed eated down low. Now, folks, let me also say, typically the pile, you want it to go directly downhill. But because of our topography here, you can't necessarily see it from your perspective. There's a giant ledge here. And if I were to take this and put it right here on the ledge, it's just going to be a nightmare. So all we did was kind of open up the sides a little bit because they got way more than they need. And instead of taking this pile and going this way, we're just going to kick it off to the side where half the footprint is going to be where it was. That's completely fine. It's okay. These piles are going to intermingle to some extent, but it's okay. We're going to take this, move it here. This thing's going to move down and keep on trucking. Those are the adjustments you have to make when you're in a different, when you're in rough terrain. So here we go. All right, both piles are flipped. We're going to take the bedding out of here and put it in there, but we're going to do a little bit of an experiment. Let's just see. They're going to probably go up here and say, hey, I don't see my regular food. Watch where they go. Here's how it's going to unfold, y'all. These guys are going to get on this pile, as you see. They're going to scratch this stuff out because it still has, like I said, it was in a compost cage. Over the week, we layered it, remember? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'll basically put another carbon layer in, put their food on top, put another carbon layer in. That's what those trash bags are down there. They don't even want it. Not right now. They're very interested in this pile. They're getting everything they need. And in fact, after I put the food in there, You'll have one or two go over, but this is where they want to be. They're doing, you can see things that are still identifiable in this pile. But look at what they've done just over this last week in this pile. There is nothing in here except for the wood shavings that you can identify, and it was identical to that. Right now in this pile, you have things like red onions and, you know, other things that are easily identifiable. By the end of this week, it won't be. That's how awesome they shred this stuff and make some fantastic compost, and you're feeding them all at the same time. Now, with that said, we're going to reassemble their cage. All right, y'all, that's a wrap. Now, does it take a little bit of time? Absolutely, but this only happens once a week. And think about it, in terms of a compost pile, folks, in this system, you're only turning those piles 4 times in a month, and then you have compost, whereas in an 18-day, you're doing it, it could be as many as 9 times. Now, check out what you see here. Let me just point this out. You got beans, rice, tortilla chips, even some comfrey over there. You got 3 birds out of 40 that find this interesting right now. You see my point here? The rest of them are over there decimating those piles that we just filed right back up. Now, another point to point out also in this system, what are the downsides? Well, number one, in terms of work, is that it does require significantly more work. But you know what? It ain't costing me a dime. I got more time than money these days, and I'm sure many of you do too as well. Additionally, in this system, you are going to use a fair amount of water. And once again, for those of you out there that are on chlorinated, fluoridated water, you don't want to be using that in this system because it's not going to help you any. It's only going to make it, it's going to take you the other direction. So it does use a lot of water because unlike an 18-day pile, you're putting water in these piles every single time you flip it. And then also, I want to reiterate that right now, this compost cage is relatively small. We took the bedding out of there, put it down, put some more carbon that we got out of the barn. It was just useless stuff. That was what was in those trash bags. And for those of you on board right now, keep in mind what's going to happen is what you see these birds doing. We're going to put down, we got a little bit of comfrey, we got a little bit of nitrogen, right? As they come in here and eat, they're also going to poop, just like they are in that pile. So it creates...
That's one thing I didn't think about was if exactly how much water be using in the system like that. And so yeah, now watching this, I'm kind of thinking to myself that that's gonna be a lot of water. I think I need more water storage to do this. So things I'm thinking about setting up this chicken system that I'm going to try to replicate here with the Permanent Pastures Farm. Good to see you, Jack and Mariano. I see Jack just pop in and out. What size is the run going to be, Jack? It's I think I can do like a pretty large, I could do a pretty large area actually, probably like a 20 by 20 foot area. What's up, Normok? Crimson. So yeah, permaculture mobile chicken tractor, and this is one of the ways of implementing it is Billy Bond. I highly encourage everybody to go check out Billy and Permanent Pastures Farm YouTube channel. He does a lot of really cool videos, and this chicken tractor on steroids is I think a really great way to raise chickens and create some amazing soil, and it's a pretty important thing, especially when you start to try to grow some food and you have poor soil that you're working with. If you can make garden beds like almost instantly by generating a lot of compost, then it's kind of a gold mine for you. You're kind of like mining great soil, you're generating great soil, and after a while of possibly doing that kind of stuff, you have like living soil um, on your property, whereas most soils aren't really like that a great extent. I mean, you really have to work in the soil and break up the soil and everything, and make it as easy for the roots to get in there as you can. So yeah, really beneficial thing that I think you can go check out with all that. And then recently ran across this tiny giant lifestyle channel on YouTube, and he's got some really great videos on here. Uh, Possible future guests for the channel. I'm gonna see if I can get him on sometime to have a discussion, because he's doing some really cool stuff, building things with aircrete, and he recently had a really good talk about parallel economies, which try to cover a lot here on the podcast, and some ways that we can create parallel economies, and the way that communities can work together. Kind of a big takeaway for me was like, we can have a decentralized community, and like ways that we can connect with each other through things like Open Bazaar, where we could sell each other stuff through Open Bazaar, and not have to go in the traditional system, and people could get the things that we're producing, in different places. So if we could actually, like, here, if I got permaculture going on and I have excess, things that I'm producing that, can create a network through something like Open Bazaar, and we can start trading with each other, like cryptos or whatever. So that I could get, you buy some of the stuff that I'm producing. So that's one way that he was talking about it. Well, I mean, the first part is he was talking about you have to become like 80% self reliant in this, and then like that rest of that 20% is you still have to do stuff in the system, but you're gonna shoot to produce all your own food is always the goal, and that's what you should shoot for, is 100% of your own food. And once you've got those bases covered, you need very minimal to live, actually. Like, if you can actually own the place and the land, and have a little structure, just a small structure on it, that's like a stepping stone of living totally independently. And so he's like teaching how to build these structures, these aircrete structures, which we have talked about in the past on the podcast. Have been some of these aircrete structures and all that. I think it's a really interesting technology, and there's been several people that have been implementing it for a while. I did some experiments with aircrete, and I just hadn't really figured out the best formula for creating forms and everything like that. And it is very delicate. there for a little while, and so it depends on the type of foaming agent um, in the concrete that, or sorry, in the when you inject the foaming agent into the aircrete. Uh, it depends on like what type of that you're using, and supposedly Drexel is much better for that. Um, and you can just use regular old dish soap, but s- apparently this Drexel stuff's like way better, gives you better strength properties. But anyway, it's somewhat delicate, and so you have to kind of be careful, like depending on what kind of forms you're using and stuff like that, and how thick you pour it and everything like that. So once you dial that in, you can get a really consistent product, and you can just use like barrels and like a mixer, and you don't need very many other tools other than ways of resetting these forms. Um, so that's basically part of what this guy teaches, and he had this really great video where he talks about a lot of this stuff. So I want to pull it up for you guys and maybe watch a little bit of this and get you guys introduced to Tiny Giant Lifestyles videos here. So check this guy out. He's really cool. I think he's onto some really awesome stuff. What's up, Normock? Concrete is damn expensive now. Hell yeah, it is. Um, so, if you can stretch out the concrete, that you can, you know, basically make these aircrete walls and everything, and then put, like a mesh over top of it and make it stronger. So let's watch this video here with Tiny Giant Lifestyle, and he goes into a little bit about that stuff, and then kind of talks about ideas for like communities and ways that you can make money at home, and different types of things that he teaches in workshops. He also is pretty familiar with the law, and was really getting into some of the legal aspects of everything toward the end of the podcast, is the end of this broadcast that he did. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool one, and let me go ahead and move you guys over here, and we'll check this out.
So let's take a look at cash. We've got cash coming up, and we've got the new Fed coin potentially right around the corner, a new digital currency that you could be chained to. If you accept the universal basic income, it's probably going to be programmable and only spendable where permitted. And then we've got cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, of course, Bitcoin being potentially the worst one there is, and the absolute best one like Cloudcoin having zero interest whatsoever. In fact, China may be very well ready to crack all of this encryption with quantum computing. But nonetheless, it can represent the people's currency. And then beyond that, you've got the Liberty Dollar. Liberty Dollar is an organization basically that allows you to buy and sell silver, and you can exchange it with other users online. You don't have to tote around physical gold, but certainly physical gold in this space would be pretty much the same thing. Liberty Dollar, you can cash out anytime for real gold or have payments sold out and sent over to your PayPal account and hopefully eventually to your bank account. And it sounds nice, and it sounds like, yeah, we need some kind of money that's ours. But why is that? Why does it matter? I mean, is it really worth having crypto? Well, the truth is that it doesn't matter at all at this point. I don't really care. I mean, yeah, you can park some value in gold. Maybe it's safe from deflation. Maybe you can put some money in Bitcoin and make money on long-term investments. Maybe you'll just sell out your fiat for digital fiat, a digital dollar. But you see, the problem is that everything that you want comes from the system of the controllers and those who do everything to you and around you that you don't want. You can't possibly break free so long as you have to exchange anything that you have back into their private currency. So, to that ends, this is where true communities of freedom have to be developed. You have to develop parallel economies, because the only way this works is if we only buy outside of their system. And yes, I know there will always be people that are willing to barter and exchange who are in the system to get the things we want. And the reality is that our communities at this time do not provide the goods and services that we want. So, as we think about building these alternative communities and building parallel economies, the foundation of all of these communities is going to be a fundamental change in our life and our lifestyle. Quite frankly, it's probably going to mean giving up a whole lot of those things that we think we need. And just simply changing our habits. And that can be very hard. As soon as YouTube started censoring people along with everyone else and taking government funds for it, like Twitter, everybody's just like, well, I'm just going to invent a new tube and go over to NewTube and we'll have the exact same version of the same old thing. Instead of looking forward to new technologies or implementing things in new ways, it's just the same old stuff over. And so, at least in the beginning, it's probably going to mean some sacrifice in giving up some things, some real effort to change the way we do things. And if there's anything whatsoever you do in your life, you need to find a way to monetize it. I don't care if you've got a tennis ball on your dresser that you want to sell. It should go into some kind of community sales space first. And you should be offering your services and goods there. And of course, that marketplace, there's Open Bazaar. There's a few decentralized Agora type markets, which are not easy or friendly to use. So really there isn't a site or technology in place yet. And certainly nobody's using the interplanetary file system and hosting their files on their own computers. None of us are using the Brave browser to browse private sites. And unless this fundamental change happens where we all begin to work together and create this parallel economy, then all you're really doing is trading time for money that devalues, getting private script, and exchanging it for goods and services. And now I know.
Bam. Hit the nail on the head right there. Think about the fiat money. It's just a piece of script, from the Fed. It's kind of almost a debt slavery symbol, I guess. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got to use cash at the point in the normal economy. But, they could flip you out to, like, you're going to have to sell out to buy these CBDCs. As this, that whole economic system gets totally good, totally collapses. So, something to think about. Do you, they give you the same value when you turned in your cash for that? And, they might put a lot of people in that kind of situation where, if you don't want to take any of that stuff, you're kind of stuck, right? So anyway, that's why it's a good idea to start figuring out networks at least, in ways that we could sell things to each other. And it needs to happen like we got to make it, we got to get it to happen sooner rather than later. Especially for building our own networks and stuff, and on like stuff like IPFS, I think is super important for doing stuff like this. Being able to like host other people's content through IPFS. He goes on to talk about like maybe an app or something that he might be working on to help things uh, like an algorithm of some kind to help videos go viral and be shared across a bunch of people's computers, and then once the virality or viralness goes away, then it just kind of gets removed for the next data coming in, I guess, for some other video. Um, but distributes it out amongst a lot of places. So anyway, I'll continue to listen to this for a little bit.
A lot of people absolutely do not like the idea of changing what they're doing. But there's going to have to be some give and take. There's going to have to be these changes made. And once these changes are made, then you could use really any cryptocurrency, a custom cryptocurrency, Liberty Dollar. If you were so inclined, you could lug around chunks of metal. But the point being that once you're in a private economy and you have no need whatsoever to exchange back into the national fiat currency, then you're free. Your money's not devalued. Your loans are not controlled. You have a truly free market. And in the beginning, the only way that this can realistically happen is if we begin to build our own houses, build our own communities, remove every attachment to the system that absolutely requires their fiat currency. I know there's quite a few people that have actually been able to make their life workable by using cryptocurrency only for the people willing to exchange for it. But, when you think about community, it's a collective of people actually working together and looking out for one another, actually engaging in community, communing together and engaging in every aspect of life. And in the beginning, that might mean just buying used stuff, accepting the lower standard of living, transitioning from a small house to a tiny house, or a large house to a small house. It might mean depending on where you're at, you might actually want the freedom of not requiring a job anymore to be able to support your lifestyle. And whenever you get to a point where you can support 80% or more of your entire life, and that is, your housing, your land, your food, your transportation, your energy, your sanitation, your play, your toys, everything that you need, then you have time. Then you have freedom. You get your mind back and you begin to actually discover what you really want, what you really, really want, and what brings true peace and fulfillment to your life, something that a busy life doesn't give you the time to discover. But it's not like we have to return to an Amish style of living, although that might be where it starts for some of us. We might be willing to trade our business skills for someone else to grow our high quality food without poisons, GMOs, and cannibalism, human aborted baby ingredients in their food. So we can make better choices, or we can take the leap and just step out in faith. So now let's talk about what's really possible in community. You have your land, your house, your shelter, your food. Maybe you like to do blacksmithing. Maybe someone else does blacksmithing. Now you have swords and ironwork. If you have a woodworker, you have cabinetry. Maybe you get somebody that actually makes glass. And then moving up from there, It is possible with the technology that we have to use 3D printers and scrap plastic or scrap metal and metal printers and induction cookers. We can 3D print our own vehicles. We can cast engine blocks and make combustion engines.
Now, this is the shit I'm talking about right now, all right? So, we have, access to some of this technology that we can, implement right now so that, we can start doing different things of local manufacturing and, like little micro factories, basically, which is, I swear to God, there will be these micro factories all over the place. Because, uh, or anyway, if you can set up one of these micro factories, that will be an awesome thing. Um, that's what these open source ecology guys were working on a long time ago. Um, getting old and family and Christmas. Cool, man. Glad. Okay. Yeah, man. I hope you had a good one for Christmas and everything, and all you guys. Yeah, it seems like man, that happened so fast. It kind of like came and went this year. Had some, family stuff that my brother just had a new baby, and they were all freaked out that I, didn't have my like Tdap vaccine or something like that. And basically, they just don't want people around their baby that don't have that. And so, anyway, it was kind of fucked up family situation. So anyway, just kind of me and the parents this year for Christmas, but it was good. I was able to work on my project, um, and get my project done, which I've been wanting to do for a long time. So I kind of spent Christmas and all that out in the garage working on stuff. But it was really awesome. It was really good to be working on that project and getting that knocked out. And I've got a line of projects, a bunch of different things that I'm messing with. And yeah, this guy is definitely doing some cool stuff. He's got workshops that he hosts in Terralingua, um, Texas, I believe. So, uh, it is. It's right here. He's got a bunch of different things that he's into, man. He's got like a few different things, and I don't know. He might have something that maybe helps people become affiliates to some of this stuff as well. So, uh, yeah, this guy's got some cool stuff going on, and he's got a really interesting story. So let's see, control. See. So let me read to you some of his story here. Control E. Nah, man. Nah, dude. Like, uh, yeah, my Christmas wasn't that awesome either this year. But, uh, but yeah, man. Uh, hope you had a good Christmas and everything. Uh, so yeah, let's check out his story a little bit. Let me tell you my story about how I started a conventional life and landed in a paid-for aircrete house. I was raised in typical dependent government schools, taught to get a job, work hard, start a retirement plan, and when I'm old, I can retire and do what do do what I want to do with enough money to live the dream. I wish I knew then that anything is possible. I worked in the family business through high school and off and on every year. Then finally got the plush little corporate job on a salary. I worked hard and long, only to lose it all during the Great Recession. The company I worked for escorted me out of the front door like a stranger and informed me they were firing me, along with 60% of the other employees, and my belongings would be mailed to me. You see, in spite of working 36 hours days, improving their business, and never telling them no when they called at the end of the day, they didn't care about me. The company's primary client was bought out and our jobs outsourced without notice. It felt horrible, that heavy, hopeless feelings as I thought about the bills and taking care of my family sinking hard, and I discovered the economy at the time was not going to have anything to offer. Construction had come to a grinding halt. The old way of working for a company all one's life no longer applied. The world, it just is not what I was promised. It would be in school. It's a new age. It was time to grow up. That's what he said. I cashed out my retirement fund to kick the bucket a little further down the road. As the money ran out, I took the last bit and paid off one car, let the other go back, sold the timeshares, bought some land, and built a tiny frame house before tiny houses were a thing. One good thing did come from the corporate job, though: hours of surfing YouTube and dreaming about homesteading in the wild. I learned a lot and had begun to practice many of the things I was learning. With no job and no money, I learned to live 80% off grid, grew my food, and took odd jobs to buy the rest of what we needed. Eventually, we lived 1 year with no power, no bills, no time commitments, and loads of super fresh food. I actually felt amazing, and all that fear of the unknown gave way to an inner stillness and a knowing that we were going to be fine no matter what. I experienced something special, something lost to the modern world. Yeah, this is awesome. This is like almost a book, man. Uh, it's a little bit about tiny giant lifestyle here. Um, I ran into an old family friend and started helping him with his construction business, building houses, and eventually got the opportunity to build a straw bale alternative house. I was hooked. I started learning everything I could get my hands on to read about alternative building. I started taking workshops for anything I could attend. Over the next few years, I had the opportunity to build or participate in building thatched, rammed earth chip, clay slip, straw, cob, and earth bag houses. At one time or another, I was able to live for a few months in each of these buildings as well. Then I was invited to Mexico to build with aircrete. The Dome people did not teach well nor understand basics of compressive structure, but I got the gist of aircrete. I returned home and built a small studio for an artist. Weather left straw prices too high and mostly unavailable. Not to mention the straw mold or pesticides were killing sinuses, and I hated working with it. So I built the cute little studio using aircrete and got to live in it for a year while they left the country to get a second citizenship. I was sold. This was by far the most comfortable of all the structures next to straw bale. It was fast to build, easy to heat and cool, as well as fast, cheap, and beautiful. The people who attended the Mexico Dome workshop started asking questions on our forum. It seems they did not understand enough to feel confident in building their own structure. I started helping and teaching my friends. This led to private workshops and eventually the idea of sharing this great experience with everyone. Now I teach alternative building schools twice a year and have met many amazing people. After building a number of these aircrete domes, I noticed that people never seemed to finish building them. They doubted their ability to install electric, plumbing, and air conditioning, all things I have been doing for 30 years. This is why I started the Terralingua School of Alternative Building to give people an affordable and effective way to learn all the skills necessary to build their own house with all the systems that make a house comfortable and livable home. And the story continues. So, from wilderness to living inside a 201 square foot aircrete tiny house. Terralingua was very remote location, 6 miles from what you can loosely call a town, and no utilities are even possible out there in the harsh Chihuahuan desert. This location was perfect for testing aircrete in an extreme climate. It was like being a pioneer in the wilderness. Everything you required for life, survival, and comfort had to be carefully planned for and hauled in. Every step was completely my responsibility. It was a great experience of personal growth. I landed at Terralingua in a tent only to discover unrelenting, uncomfortable wind was not only too hot or too cold, but also too noisy in the mornings and evenings as it deposited fine bentonite dust into everything I owned. I had dust in places I normally don't think about. The extreme silence and solitude tested my mind to the max before discovering something beautiful and profound in myself and the desert. I upgraded to living inside a much more comfortable foil-lined foam board hexayurt. I've thought about that myself. Water was the next step forward. For water, we had an old windmill well on the property, but the water had magnesium salts in it, and there was no aquifer in the area. So for drinking water and to build with cement, rainwater was to be the source of life for our bodies in the aircrete building. With a 32-foot by 32-foot roof complete and a tank in place just in time for the rains, we had 2,600 gallons of water with a yearly capacity to catch as much as 7,600 gallons of fresh, tasty, crisp, cool water. I must admit the shade provided by this roof was a huge relief to my skin from the scorching summer sun as well. Now we had a place to hold classes and were ready to build the 16-foot diameter, 201 square foot aircrete tiny house cabin. So that's cool. He made like an awning kind of first. Or the roof to capture all that water. With the aircrete cabin nearing completion, I moved in just in time as winter storm came in, bringing sideways blowing cold rain and ice that would make the most rugged mountain man tremble. The wind blew hard, the storm raged, and the thunder rumbled across the hills as the lightning split rocks. Inside the aircrete, I was snug, safe, and sound, living in complete comfort, even though I was in shorts and did not have the solar power to run the heat pump. I was reminded just how much I love aircrete and how empowering and amazing the feeling of living inside something built with my own two hands. By now, I was convinced that my future homes will always be aircrete. Nothing, and I mean nothing, beats that feeling of absolute abundance and safety. Comfort is the reason we build homes, otherwise, we would just live outside. The type of alternative building you choose should meet your goals and protect you from the elements. Generally, there are two primary goals when choosing a building style: passive and actively controlled temperatures. Passive structures use thermal mass wrapped in insulation and solar gain to collect heat and hold it long enough to stay comfortable in winter and release heat overnight to store cool for summer days. The more extreme the environment, the more carefully you must design your structure's heat loss and gain. Also, the less likely you will remain comfortable all winter or all summer. Fully passive only works in the correct climate, and most of us don't live there. Any type of building that does not provide good insulation is not acceptable in climates with hot summers or cold winters. Modern earthships that actually work contain a large thermal mass of dirt behind the tires and wrapped in thick envelope of foam board insulation. Even then, outside a climate with a comfortable daily, nightly average temperature, they can become less than ideal for many people. Structures that provide no real insulation include cob, rammed earth, earth bag, and the like. Active structures may or may not use thermal mass, but do benefit from some thermal mass, and hybrid structures are ideal. Good insulation is key to minimizing energy consumption in active structures. These structures consume some energy and appropriate technology to move heat into or out of the structure. The primary advantage to active structures is the ability to hold your chosen comfort temperature year around without being at the mercy of the elements. This is my favorite structure type. Most first world people would agree. Straw bale does a good job on insulation, but moldy pesticide dust is hard on me, and straw is not instantly available or cheap after delivery. Keep it simple. Building skills required should be easy to learn and teach to hired help. Common off the shelf, easy to obtain materials that are appropriate in terms of purpose, efficiency, and cost of time. Money requires time. Digging earth costs time, so free dirt is not always cheaper. Reasonably rapid to build, even for one person. Um, all the stuff for aircrete. Aircrete to build dreams. Structure and insulation of any value you choose all in one. Feel warm, feel safe. Passive or active homes, you can make your walls any thickness and insulation value you choose. You are not limited to dimensions of pre-manufactured wall materials. Though soft compared to cement, aircrete has strength to spare. Hold up a second floor in snow loads or build a compressive structure to take advantage of this strength. So he goes on to say, now you can do this. Now feel good knowing that you'll be able to get through building your own house. The skills are easily learned and used by almost anyone. Affordable, my money is well spent. Build as you can afford it, or save up and pay cash for materials. At as little as $9 per square foot for a shell, which is your wall and insulation. You can finish, is the key word there. Finish the house, aircrete house, with all the amenities and all the inside stuff, and have it move in ready for $38 per square foot. You can build your master bedroom with a small kitchenette and live there until your larger house is finished which I think is a pretty cool idea. Um, Aircrete's so great on all this stuff. Tornado proof, round structures, pass through proof, flood and rot proof, fireproof, sound resistant. He's saying comfortable in any climate, affordable, expandable, energy efficient, and non toxic. So lots of cool stuff about using Aircrete to build structures there. By now, you are aware of the value in choosing the right alternative building materials and methods. Now that I've chosen a material, what now? So planning, architect floor plans, electric plans, plumbing plans, getting clear on what you want. This is key. Make a plan and stick to it without change. Get it right the first time and don't miss the details. You do not need a degree to make good floor plans and draw out 3D rendered guides. Getting land, find your region to live in, search for property, negotiate a good price, ensure you have a clear title and physical deeded access to your land. Buy a title policy to protect your investment, get a survey. There's plenty of cheap land. Getting closer to the city raises the price, and you have to get permission from your government to live and build. Alternative buildings not welcome in most cases. Will you have to drive to work every day? What might it look like if you leave it all behind? What are your priorities for the whole of your life in order of importance? Consider this carefully and don't let fear or doubt stop you from getting your highest priority. Perhaps you can live a free life 2 hours drive away, and this freedom gives you time and money to drive in and enjoy the Big Apple culture even more than living in town, working all the time to pay rent or buy expensive land. So, coming up on the last few minutes of the show here. But yeah, this is the guy that is making some pretty cool stuff. Tiny Giant Life on YouTube. So go check him out. He's got a really great channel that I think is pretty awesome. Go subscribe to his channel and check him out. Appreciate you guys coming to hang out for the show tonight. What's up, Gabriel? See you in the chat there. Yeah, just a lot of cool benefits of Aircrete, building with Aircrete, and more about. He gets into actually more centered around the community aspect here, talking about like self-sufficient communities, and then just kind of like a something to think about is like getting starting to use like online things like Open Bazaar, and like making sure you get those links out there for where people can buy products from you through places like Open Bazaar. And it could just be to like a small group of people, just like everybody that tunes into the show or whatever. You can start like having different things that I can make with my like laser engraver and things like that, and then maybe some tools and knives, some things I'm thinking about, and just selling them all over, but also having them available there as well. So that's something to think about. As far as like people getting together, he was talking about people getting together all in one location, and how difficult that can be, and you want to make sure that you have contracts and different stuff like that if you're gonna buy land with other people. Those are all things to think about, and most people don't really want to go into that, and but that's okay too, because you know, uh, as we still have access to the internet and capabilities on the internet, that we should utilize them as tools, and use them to have decentralized community online as well. So um, you know, be able to have your local community, and I super encourage people to go out and do that and try to find other people that are around you that can help you out in different ways, but you know also have online community as well. So speaking of that, thank you guys for coming to hang out for the podcast tonight. We got Gabriel, Crimson Cloud, Mariano, and Normock hanging out in the chat there. I appreciate you guys coming to hang out for the podcast tonight. Be back next week for another episode, and gonna see if I can get a guest for you guys for next week, and we'll be back then. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of your week, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace, guys. Be excellent to each other.